Marvel and DC represent the two sides of the superhero identity. Tackling it from two different perspectives, both have spent years creating their own versions of a reality where men become super. Superman is the superhero that everybody else follows, setting the standard of what a superhero should be. He gets pretty boring sometimes. And don't get me wrong, I love Superman. I want to hang out with Superman. But he is there as the ideal, a romantic symbol of truth and justice in the American way. Man of Tomorrow, himself Superman, is often described as a big boy scout, which makes him bland by default. If Superman is the first, then he's also the early adapter. I think it's fair to say that the biggest superheroes in the planet right now are Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man. After Superman, DC brought us Batman, a dark counterpart to the heroism of Superman. Batman is the ideal anti-hero superhero, not actually being an anti-hero package. Superman and Batman are literally the origin point for the two main sides of heroism, dark and light. They're the progenitors of this whole superhero identity. Something to remember is that for every action, there must be a reaction. So far, the DC world of heroes grows to bring us the most ideal versions of superheroes. Deeply seated in fantasy, relatability isn't really the point. When it comes to DC, we're not supposed to be like them. They're ideals, they're embodiments of otherworldly beings. Modern mythology, we're supposed to strive to be like them, which makes sense as they are the original superhero comic book guys. But for every action, a reaction must take place, and Marvel Comics is the second biggest superheroes guys on the market, pushing all sorts of superhero dandies too. Iron Man, Hulk, Captain America. You want a Wolverine? Or do you want that good shit? That premium shit? That crown to the Marvel Universe, the pinnacle of its themes? When it comes to the reality of being an actual superhero, with great power comes great responsibility. Spider-Man is the biggest superhero Marvel's got, and that may actually be enough. The appeal of Marvel is often described as the relatability of its heroes. When DC depicted its modern mythology of gods, Marvel instead decided to focus on the human element of the superhero. When DC looks at the superhero, Marvel looks at the hero. Unlike DC's more godlike superheroes, Marvel focuses on making their heroes more interesting and accessible. This approach is evident in how Marvel's heroes and villains are portrayed. The heroes' struggles and flaws make them more realistic and enduring. In contrast, DC's heroes often embody ideals where their villains are more complex and intriguing, as they often have to go up against gods. Marvel's approach humanizes their heroes, exploring the challenges and the responsibilities that come with being human. This makes their characters more relatable and engaging, allowing readers to see themselves in the hero's struggles. Spider-Man is the third most popular superhero of all time because he's the most human. I think the relationship both companies have on the superhero fantasy or the superhero experience is super interesting. This is kind of the reason I wanted to make the video. When I look at the Marvel version, I see two fascinating characters from that universe. Those two characters are Moon Knight and the Sentry. Moon Knight, aka Mark Spector, is a complex and intriguing hero with unique blend of mystery, action, and psychological depth. The Sentry, on the other hand, is a powerful being with immense strength and abilities, but struggles with the mental health issues and a dark personality. His complex and often tremendous relationship with his alter ego, the Void, adds depth to his character. Superman is the start of the superhero. Need proof? Just look at his name, Superman. The Sentry's immense power and struggles with his darker half, the Void, could be linked to Superman's incredible abilities and the weight of the responsibility that comes with that. The Sentry's villain is basically the Void, which, because the Sentry is all powerful, the only thing that could stand against him is basically himself, the Void. I think the interesting thing I want to focus up about is how, because DC stands to be the ideal and Marvel starts to be the realistic take, you could imply that the Superman is basically just the idealized version of what the Sentry wants to get to. But in reality, the Sentry is a crackhead meth addict that doesn't really know what's going on, because when he took his version of the super soldier serum, it enhanced all the negativity and emptiness that, let's say, drug abuse would probably help him cope with. Moon Knight, as a reaction to Batman, is gritty, dark, and complex, which are direct parallels to Batman. Both Moon Knight and the Sentry have unique twists that set them apart from the DC duo, but Moon Knight's multiple personalities and connection to Egyptian mythology and the Sentry's struggle with mental health and the Void's influence make them distinct characters in their own right. Moon Knight himself is a multiple personality, mentally unstable person that struggles with his sense of reality, which may not be exactly like Batman, but sort of becomes Batman lights. DC characters are often depicted as larger than life figures, embodying ideals and values that are inspirational and symbolic. Like I said, Superman is truth, justice, and the American way personified. Marvel's characters, on the other hand, tend to be more humanized and flawed. They struggle with personal issues, relationships, and moral ambiguities. Spider-Man struggles with balancing superhero life and personal life, or Batman's darkness and obsession with justice show that heroes can be relatable and have vulnerabilities. Moon Knight is a realistic take on Batman, with its own fantasy elements there to substitute Batman's endless resources. In a way, right? This difference in approach can make Marvel characters feel more grounded and accessible. As a result, in contrast, DC's idealized superheroes like Superman and Batman, Marvel's characters such as Spider-Man are often portrayed as flawed and inhuman. The more powerful a character is, the more unstable they may become, as seen in characters like the Hulk. Spider-Man, on the other hand, is an example of a character who overcomes his flaws and to become a hero by depicting him as a working-class hero who achieves greatness through effort and perseverance. Spider-Man's character elevates to a similar standing as iconic figures like Batman and Superman. The Sentry and Moon Knight, as far as an equivalent goes, are deconstructions, so they won't be as popular. I think the Sentry, Superman, and Batman is Moon Knight, as far as his narrative goes. Part 3. The Flash? I don't think I need to point out how both universes are basically mirrors of our time, and the heroes and situations that happen in these worlds are just reflections of whatever is happening in our world. Every action, there must be an equal reaction. While they do share similarities, they're distinct characters. They have distinct characters with different tones and approaches because they reflect different ideals and different things. To illustrate my point, let's talk about a character that's obviously ripped off. Deadpool's self-aware humor fits perfectly with Marvel's take on the superhero, but he's basically just a goofy counterpart to DC's serious Deathstroke. Rather than being a copy, Deadpool's charm lies in his unique tone and sense of awareness. Both companies copy and borrow from each other all the time, elaborating on other ideas and maybe completing other ones. It would be dumb if DC didn't have their own versions of popular Marvel heroes. And the inverse is also correct. It would be dumb for Marvel to not have their own versions of DC heroes, right? So following that logic, wouldn't it be dumb if DC didn't have their own version of Spider-Man? When you think about following the logic that I'm laying down for you guys. So who is the DC version of Spider-Man? Trying to bring everything full circle, the Flash can be seen as a DC equivalent to Spider-Man because of the different approaches and tones they both have. Since the Flash powers are so immense, a character like Spider-Man who relies on wit and relatability might not be as compelling in the DC universe. The Flash's godlike speed allows for a different kind of storytelling, whereas Spider-Man's struggles and vulnerabilities are a key part of his appeal. These differing approaches highlights the unique strengths and focuses of each character and the way in which they resonate with audiences. The Flash can be seen as an idealized version of Spider-Man, particularly in terms of their powers. While Spider-Man's abilities enhance his already existing skills and instincts, such as agility and quick thinking, the Flash's powers are more overt, granting him super speed. This allows the Flash to be basically anywhere, anytime, eliminating the time management struggles that Peter Parker kind of focuses as Spider-Man. In essence, the Flash's powers represents a fantasy version of Spider-Man's abilities, where he can effortlessly balance his responsibilities and be at multiple places at once. I mean, you guys don't think that Peter Parker would like to have the powers of the Flash? So yeah, I think DC needs to stop trying to copy Spider-Man. And don't get me wrong, the Flash is huge as a concept, but it doesn't have what it takes to be as big as Spider-Man, because quite literally, the Flash doesn't have the relatability that Peter Parker does. Both DC and Marvel have their own ways of approaching characters and character development, as well as storytelling, and that's what makes their characters so compelling. But I think it's interesting to look at it from the sense of causation. But yeah, those are mainly my thoughts. Yeah, I tried myself my best to give you guys another video, and hopefully you like it. If you watched all the way, thank you for your time, and yeah, stay safe.